Today, we're going to look at two stories separated by almost 2,000 years. One is ancient, one is modern, and on the surface, they have absolutely nothing in common. But what's incredible is how they're bound together by a universal theme: sickness, stigma, and the unbelievable power of a simple human touch.
So let's just dive right in. I mean, how can an old story from a religious text possibly connect to the AIDS crisis of the 1980s? It sounds like a stretch, right? Well, that's the exact question we're exploring. And the answer, it reveals something really fundamental about fear, compassion, and what it actually means to be whole.
Okay, so our first story is about a woman whose name we never even learn, but her suffering is crystal clear. For her, living back then, a physical ailment wasn't just, being sick, it was basically a social death sentence.
For 12 years. Seriously, just let that sink in for a moment. For over a decade, she was suffering from this chronic flow of blood. But this wasn't just a medical problem, it was a sentence of complete and total isolation. Because of the religious law of her time, her condition made her perpetually unclean. Now, what did that mean? Well, it meant she couldn't go to the temple, she couldn't be with her family for holidays, she couldn't share a meal or even hug someone she loved. She was basically a ghost in her own town, completely cut off from everything and everyone.
All right, now let's hit the fast forward button by about 2,000 years. We're jumping from the dusty roads of the ancient world to the hospitals and screaming headlines of the 1980s and the dawn of a terrifying new illness.
And things move, just breathtakingly fast. So in June of 1981, the CDC reports this strange cluster of cases. By 1982, it has a name: AIDS, and it's already a global problem. Panic starts to set in, and with that panic, a very familiar and very ugly pattern of fear and ostracization starts all over again.
And what happens when fear gets way ahead of the facts? Well, society reacted with, frankly, just cruelty. A whole new group of people was suddenly pushed to the absolute margins, blamed for their own illness, and treated like modern-day lepers.
And this is where the parallels between our two stories become chillingly clear. The fear surrounding both of these conditions was fueled by the exact same thing: dangerous myths and just plain wrong information.
Just look at this. Look at how the language of stigma just echoes across the centuries. The woman was called unclean by law. Some religious leaders were calling AIDS patients sinners. You had these ridiculous myths. People thought her shadow could literally sour wine. People thought you could get AIDS from a handshake. And the consequences? Devastatingly similar. Being kicked out of your home, losing your job, even being denied basic care from doctors.
But right in the middle of all this darkness, both of our stories completely pivot on one single powerful act, an act of defiance against this crushing weight of public fear.
So this woman, remember, she's not even supposed to be out in public. She takes this incredible risk. She literally pushes her way through a mob of people, breaking every single social and religious rule she knows just for the chance to touch the edge of Jesus' cloak. This was an act of pure, raw desperation and faith all rolled into one.
And his reaction is just remarkable. Think about it. He's being mobbed. People are pressing in on him from all sides, but he feels this touch. It's different. And he doesn't pull away, he doesn't get angry, he stops everything. He acknowledges the connection, and he forces this private, desperate act out into a very public moment of truth. Okay, let's jump forward again. It's 1987. A different time, a different plague of fear. But once again, a single public touch was about to confront all of that fear head-on. Princess Diana, one of the most famous people on the planet, walked into an HIV/AIDS unit. And in front of all the world's cameras, she reached out and shook a patient's hand. No gloves, no hesitation. In that one moment, that one simple handshake, she sent a message to the entire world. People with AIDS are not scary. They deserve our compassion.
But to really understand the true power of these moments, we need to go back to that first story. Because what happened next for that woman, it was about way more than just a physical cure. It was about something much, much deeper. See, when Jesus tells her, "Your faith has made you well," that phrase is so much bigger than it sounds in English. The original Greek word doesn't just mean healed, like your sickness is gone. It means to be made whole again, to be completely restored, put back together in your body, your mind, your spirit, and crucially, in your community.
So think about it. The bleeding stops. That's a private miracle, right? Only she knows it happened. But then, when Jesus calls her out and publicly calls her daughter, He's doing something radical. He is instantly putting her back into the community. He's claiming her as family, right then and there, ending 12 years of shame in an instant. He made her wholeness a public fact for everyone to see.
And that, right there, brings us to the very heart of what connects these two moments in history. It's about more than a physical touch. It's about the radical act of truly seeing another human being.
In a world that only saw a disease, a threat, a problem, or a sinner, both Jesus and Princess Diana chose to see a person who deserved dignity, who deserved connection, who deserved care. They just looked right past the stigma and saw the humanity underneath.
And that's really the ultimate takeaway here. A desperate touch on a cloak and a deliberate handshake at a hospital, these weren't just small things. They were world-changing acts of compassion. They blew up the myths, they dismantled the fear, and they restored the one thing stigma always tries to steal from us, our human dignity.
So all of this leaves us with a pretty challenging question for our own time. Because sickness and fear, they still create outcasts. So who are the people that we, as a society, have just stopped seeing? Who are the ones on the margins today, just waiting for a simple human act of connection to make them feel whole again?